Hard Facts. Hard Facts. With Dio.
Welcome back. It is Hard Facts in Nigeria in Port Harcourt, your number one talk station. I'm Dio. 10 minutes past 5 o'clock. Discussions are on. And once again, you're welcome to join in via facebook.com/Nigeria Info PH, via Twitter as well at Nigeria Info PH. At the appropriate time, the line will be open. You can call 0700 923 0923. And we'll move on to the next matter up for discussion right now. Well, the more you pay, the less you see. Just might be the situation in Nigeria at the moment. Well, as the story cuts it this day, SERAP urges Buhari to reverse alleged electricity tariff hike. Now, the Social, Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has urged President Buhari to direct the Minister of Power, Godi Jedi-Agba, Chairman CEO, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, Professor James Momo, to immediately reverse what he termed as the unreasonable increase in tariffs, which reportedly occurred December 2022. Now, SERAP also urged the President to ensure the investigation of the spending of public funds as investment and bailouts by successive governments to electricity distribution companies DISCOs and generating companies GENCOs since 2005, and prosecution of cases of corruption and mismanagement. Now, following the reported approval by NEC, tariffs were increased across DISCOs in the country December 2022. Several prepaid customers have reportedly confirmed the increase. Both the Minister of Power and NEC have refused to confirm or deny the increase. However, in a letter dated January 7, signed by SERAP's Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare, the organization said the increase in tariffs would exacerbate the extreme poverty across the country and undermine the ability of millions of Nigerians to satisfy basic human needs. And SERAP said the increase in tariffs failed to follow due process. Well, I'm asking you, tariff hike appropriate at this time? I imagine you might say no. So, what is your reason why you're against the idea at this time? But joining me via phone for this conversation as well is Kolawole Oluwadare, SERAP's Deputy Director. Kola, good evening to you. Welcome to Hard Facts.
Good evening, Dio.
I think this is our first conversation this year, am I right?
Yes, I think Happy New Year will be in order.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, same to you from here.
Great. So let's get on with it then. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Kola, but I think that relevant laws and or provisions in the law allow for a periodic review of the tariffs. And as a matter of fact, pardon me, a story here from The Guardian. This was published March last year. NEC to review electricity tariff every 6 months over FX inflation. A bit of that story now. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NEC, will conduct a minor tariff review every 6 months to reflect the economic situation, especially the disparity between Naira and other major currencies, specifically the dollar. NEC Chairman Sanusi Garba disclosed this yesterday and said the Commission was not implementing tariff review in secrecy. So there is that. Also, a look at the NEC website as well. That's nec.gov.ng. Talks about tariffs as well. One of the primary functions of the Commission, as contained in Section 32D of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005, is to ensure that the prices charged by licensees are fair to customers and sufficient to allow the licensees to finance their activities and to allow for reasonable earnings for efficient operation. In pursuant to the authority given under Section 76 of the ESPR Act 2005, the Commission established a methodology for regulating electricity prices called the Multi-Year Tariff Order. The MYTO provides a 15-year tariff pass for the Nigerian electricity industry with limited minor reviews each year in the light of changes in a limited number of parameters such as inflation and gas prices, and major reviews every 5 years when all the inputs are reviewed with stakeholders. So, that said, it appears that the law or policies in place anticipates that periodically, every year, there's going to be a minor review. Every 5 years, there's going to be a major review. And I doubt that the intentment of this review is a downward one. More likely than not, the intentment of the review is an increase. Now, if that's the case, so if it's expected then that every year we will have a review, very likely an upward review, albeit a minor one, and every 5 years we're expecting a major review, upwards very likely, why then is SERAP or anyone challenging this?
Dayo, I think let's agree that in this instance, we are looking at the various laws that we have in Nigeria and the rights and duties and obligations it confers on different classes of people. The citizens on the one hand, public institutions and public officers, including the president on the other hand. So what we have just referred to is the multi-year tariff order, and really is a subsidiary regulation. And the fact is, yes, the various laws of the Electricity Reform Act allows to be a review of tariffs. The law is not static. So the law has envisaged all these issues, and it does allow for, let's call it adjustment of tariff. Whereas facts may mean that it will go upward most times, that doesn't mean it cannot come down. It is not strictly increased. And in that context, what needs to be done is to look at the various variables that should be clearly set out in the multi-year tariff order that DISCOs and GENCOs must follow in increasing tariffs. And don't forget the role of the Nigerian Electricity Reform Commission in this instance. The essence of all these laws is for the average Nigerian not only to have power, but to pay an amount that is commensurate to a status and the value it gets. It's very important to understand that all these agencies and all these laws would be useless if it does not afford a benefit to the Nigerian citizen. And in this instance, electricity is an human right. We cannot have this conversation, Dayo, if there is no electricity. And that is how so much electricity is important to what we do as human beings. So, yes, tariffs can be increased or adjusted as the case may be. But even the multi-year tariff order, the one that is currently enforced, the 2020 version, is we can say it's unlawful as it were, because it allows for a biannual review, which is twice in a year. Dayo, that is too much for what Nigerians are going through presently. And the steps and procedures that the NERC should have considered as various variables to regulate the price of tariff is nowhere stated in the MYTO 2020. And that is why we are having issues like this. So when you use words like inflation, all these things, they are vague. They do not set out a clear standard. And again, Dayo, I'm pointing out that the essence of all this, the grammar, the laws, the policies, is that the average Nigerian, the poor man, should benefit. If these things do not benefit the poor man, then it doesn't make sense. Don't forget, the purpose of law and the purpose of government itself, as the Constitution has stated, is the welfare of Nigerians. So if the NERC allows these codes to increase tariffs based on vague variables like inflation or what have you, what will happen, Dayo, is the same thing we are seeing presently with petrol. We all know how much we are buying petrol presently. Some people are buying for 250, 230, 300 in some places. Rarely will you see to buy at the so-called pump price unless you are ready to queue. And these are going on for months. Right? And then again, the same thing is happening to electricity. And even what makes the one of power, electricity, the baddest, we are not even seeing the power as it were. So is this, and I think the question can easily answered by the average Nigerian, and I believe so much of them are listening right now, and they will contribute possibly. Is this the right time? Do you just think this is the right time to increase electricity tariffs? I doubt if anyone will answer in the affirmative. And there are various reasons for this, including reasons of facts that each individual may have, and reasons of law that are clearly set out, which is the right that Nigerians are entitled to enjoy under the Constitution as power as economic right, vis-a-vis the Electricity Reform Act, the NERC, and other policies, including the multi-year tariff order, that has allowed a biannual increase in tariff. The short answer, Dayo, is electricity increase in tariff of electricity now will only bring hardship for Nigerians. That's the short answer.
No, you talked about the vagueness of the parameter used in determining this increase, and we specifically referenced inflation. Once again, describing it as a vague parameter. But is it so vague, Kola? I mean, can anyone deny that we have extremely high inflation figures in the country at this time? I mean, hydrocarbons are incredibly expensive right now. This would be needed for power generation, I do believe. The GenCos would require gas. And, of course, the prices of that have been soaring or going up lately. I imagine that the equipment they need, not just the GenCos, even the DISCOs as well, in the distribution chain, transformers, cables, and the rest of it, some of this equipment might need to be imported as well. They will require foreign exchange to get this equipment in. We're talking about meters as well. Meters, some of these are produced in foreign markets. They might need to import them, and a couple other things as well. So, is inflation really, as a parameter, is it really as vague as you're saying? Because there is inflation, and if the GenCos or the DISCOs are going to be able to meet up with demand, if they are incurring more costs, they may need to pass on those extra costs to the consumers, don't you think?
The second part of our initiative in the letter that was written to the president answers this very issue, which is the fact that the Nigerian government for a long time now has been paying out some form of bailout, call them subsidies or whatever name you want to call them, in the power sector through DISCOs and GenCos for a while. Now, the total amount is even not ascertainable as I speak to you, which again speaks to matters of transparency and accountability. So when we use words like inflation as a catch-all phrase, technically to justify increase in tariff, and the poor man on the street, and don't forget, we have more than 130 million Nigerians who are poor, suffers the brunt of this, then I ask you again, what is the purpose of government? And in this case, the DISCOs and GenCos are getting off. You have listed a lot of things they should be doing, and you are referring to the matters of the legal obligation. The question is that, in fact, are they doing these things in fact? Are they actually providing these transformers, all this equipment that they should provide that would make their own work seamless and make sure the Nigerians get the benefit? That question can be answered by the various Nigerians who are presently bearing the brunt of darkness wherever they are. And then when you consider the fact that these bailouts gives these DISCOs and GenCos, you can call it an advantage over the common man who doesn't even understand all these legal terms, all these economic terms. He doesn't understand. All he or she wants to see is power, and is ready to pay as long as it's affordable. So when you use words like inflation and you consider inflation as it regards only to DISCOs and GenCos, that is rather unfair. You have to consider the effect of that same inflation on the man who is paying for power. You have to look at the minimum wage. You have to look at the price of petrol, for instance. You look at all this in totality, which is why the MYTO should have captured. And don't forget, there are strict regulations concerning issues of increase of tariff. Where are the consultations being held? There should be a wide-range stakeholder consultation, which in essence is to capture the views of all these things I've listed before the tariff is increased. We are yet to see that. What we've had, since these allegations have been made since December, we've had silence so far from all agents of government concerned, including the NRC. They have not confirmed or denied, even though there have been some informal admissions by some DISCOs about this increase. And that is not right. Increases cannot be made in secret. They shouldn't be. And so the issue still rests, Dio. The man on the street should get the benefit of all these things. If he doesn't get the benefit, then forget all the grammar and all the essence of laws and policies is to bring relief and welfare to the people.
Kola,
if that relief is not
pardon me.
I
must go for a commercial break right now. We'll return shortly. The conversation will continue. Please stay with us. Hello, welcome back to Hard Factor, your number one talk station, 92.3 Nigeria Info here in Port Harcourt. I'm Dio. 28 minutes to go before 6 p.m. Major news is up at 6. But for the moment, the conversation continues on SERAP urges Buhari to reverse electricity tariff hike. My guest Kolawole Oluwadare joins in from Lagos, is SERAP's Deputy Director. Kola, you're welcome back.
Yes, that's going on.
Join us via facebook.com/Nigeria Info PH, also via Twitter @Nigeria Info PH. The phone line will be open shortly, and the number to call 0700 93 093. Well, I imagine, or I'm certain you're familiar with the expression cost reflective tariff, and for the sake of you, the listener who might not know, a cost reflective tariff is one which reflects the true cost of supplying electricity and removes the reliance on state government subsidies to cover the variance between the current tariff and the true cost of supply of electricity. Now that's a caller. It has been argued, it's been put forward many times, especially by the discos and even government at different times, that Nigerians are not paying a cost reflective tariff, and it has also been fingered or identified as a major reason for the lack of infrastructural development or improvement in the power sector as much as may be desired, especially as the GENCOs and DISCOs especially are expected to invest heavily in infrastructure in the power sector to improve capacity. Now, that's not happened, obviously. Maybe there are many reasons for that. But once again, one reason adduced for that also is that Nigerians are not paying a cost-reflective tariff. And this increment is, I perceive, is aimed ultimately at ensuring that Nigerians pay what is commensurate for what they consume. And possibly that's why we're having these upward reviews like we just had recently as well. What's your take on that?
Niall, just like what we've seen with the actions of government in this country, particularly looking at from 2015 till date, it's always a matter of it will look like putting the cart before the horse, and which ultimately translates to 5 steps forward and 10 steps backward. So what we've seen at the NERC, that's the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, has done with the multi-year tariff order in 2020 appears to have started implementing the reflective tariff and the service-based tariff. But even with these, there are still various condition precedents that should have been set out in the multi-year tariff order that would follow various regulations that would ensure that it is fair to those who are paying. And there are various variables there. For instance, you have mentioned some of them. Provisions of transformers, poles, and all these facilities that would ensure that Nigerians are getting value, not just power. We are getting true power and we are paying fairly for it. And then there is this all-important matter of subsidies, or call them bailouts, whatever you want to call them. Billions of naira, billions, trillions have been spent over the years as bailouts and subsidies for discos and GENCOs in the name of whatever fancy name we call it. Now, the issue is, where have those monies gone? Have Nigerians gotten values for those funds that have been spent? If government is saying we do not pay for what we are, some sort of subsidy like we've seen in the petroleum industry, then how much has been spent? Who has gotten it? How has it been spent? Which is the other aspect of our advocacy to ensure that the president works with the Attorney General and instructs the anti-corruption agencies to investigate how much has been paid out by government over the years. Who has gotten what? And why are we not getting value for it? I think we can say that clearly. We are not getting value for all these trillions of naira. We keep hearing about this fund. And so, Daya, it's your question. If government has spent trillions on subsidies and bailouts, and government is claiming that we are not paying exactly for what the union has electricity, then what is the purpose of the bailouts, really? We are not seeing power as we ought to. We are paying high for the power. Then what is the essence of the bailouts? It's just a simple question that needs to be answered. But while we are trying to get government to answer those questions, importantly, the poor man on the street. The over 130 million Nigerians that are poor cannot wait for those questions to be answered. They know what it means to be poor, Dio. So when you talk of inflation the other time, they are feeling the biting bond of it, much more than the discourse of the Gencos. They are the ones that need reprieve at this very important time. And you could understand the cascading effects of the high increase in tariff, along with us queuing for fuels, how that is going to affect the economy. And ultimately, Nigerians are going to suffer for this. That is why the president needs to act urgently. While everyone appears to be busy with politicking at this time, we need to look after the welfare of Nigerians that ultimately people want to cover. The commissioners that govern the NERC, that's the Nigerian Electricity Reform Commission, and he also appoints who becomes the chairman of the NERC. And the NERC has a very simple function. As a key regulator, they are the ones who they are the umpires as well, who regulate rules in the electricity industry, including the discos and gencos and other stakeholders on the one hand, and consumers on the other hand. And so the president has these powers. He needs to use it in favor of Nigerians now. And the second aspect is to ensure that all those monies, the trillions of naira that have been spent as bailouts, needs to be investigated. If not, we cannot continue to pay out those funds, and Nigerians will not get any value for it. It doesn't just make sense.
Join the conversation now, if you will. Lines open. Call 0700 93 093. That's 0700 93 093. Also, we're live on facebook.com/Nigerian for PH. That's facebook.com/Nigerian for PH. Also, Twitter @Nigerian for PH. Remember to like and follow our pages as appropriate. Number to call once again 0700 923 093. Via Facebook, Gwasim Kenneth goes, electricity tariff hike is not appropriate at this time. All Nigerians have been suffering and smiling for over 5 decades now, and the standard of living keeps increasing every day, which will continue to be shrouded in the economic hardship downturn in view of both the cost pool persistent and demand pool persistent inflations, which Nigerians will continue to experience until something radical is done about it. That's good. You will take as well via Facebook and Twitter. And over to Twitter right now. Once again, number to call, by the way, 0700 93 093. At dat_Isoko_guide Twitter. Funny how people are just noticing it. It went up October 2022. At Augustine Aaron 7 Twitter, one customer should hold this discourse to provide PPM for them, to appropriate load assessment and proper electricity allocation time to consumers. 3, there should be a town hall meeting to checkmate the time allocation, and it should be monitored to checkmate overestimated bills. Also, at Augustine Aaron 7 tweets again. Yes, it's because these discos also have to meet up with the realities of today in terms of staff welfare, office running, purchase and equipment, and daily expenses, etc. Where customers should hold these discos is to make sure they pay what they consume. Let's talk about that as well, Kola. The issue of, whatever the shortcomings of these businesses are, and maybe they do have shortcomings. As a matter of fact, the entire power sector in Nigeria is riddled with shortcomings. Is the very definition of shortcomings. But that said, these discos, gencos, they are business concerns, and they need to turn a profit. And they've got staff as well. They've got other commitments. They've got things, they have to do also. Else they're going to go out of business. Shouldn't they do what they can as well, to ensure that they can, keep running the business? Don't they deserve to turn a profit also?
Then I'm going to answer that with the same question I've asked. Then where have the bailouts gone? We're talking of billions of naira, trillions from the enactment of the Electricity Reform Commission, Electricity Reform Act. So where have those monies gone? Who has gotten them? How have they been used? And we're not denying the fact that they are business entities that need to make profits. But the whole legal framework and the policies appears not to be working in favor of the average Nigerian, which is where the problem is. So the laws, the regulations, the policies, and the way it's implemented apparently needs to be overhauled and looked at. But the solution is not to increase tariffs, really. It's just a wrong approach to the issues. There are problems with the Electricity Reform Act. There are various issues with the Regulatory Commission. There are various issues that have come up. Even with the Disclosure Against themselves, they've always had issues with government and even with the various agents of government as to how they need to recoup their investment. But increasing the tariff is not the solution. It would appear that everyone is passing the burden of the failures of this sector to the average man on the streets. And so it's just not fair. And then the question remains, that all the bailouts, where are they gone?
All right, some other comments here. Hello, Dio. As much as I commend SERAP and Kolawole on their watchful eyes on the anomalies that takes place in Nigeria, I do not think the president will give a listening ear to their plea, as previous SERAP's demands are put on the very trash can every office will refer to as file away. Second, what would happen if the demands are kept on hold by this administration? That's on Kelvin. So, Kola, I think it's similar to a question I asked you earlier on. If the government does not respond to this, or respond as you would like, is there any other course of action lined up?
We will do what law-abiding citizens should do, while hoping that the wise counsel will prevail. Wise counsel and the obligation to fulfill their strategic duties will prevail in this instance. If it doesn't, we might have to go to court as law-abiding citizens with the hope that the judiciary will decide this in the favor of Nigerians, ultimately to get the right thing to be done. Unfortunately, a lot of time is wasted. A lot of Nigerians will continue to bear the brunt of this, but that would appear to be the only lawful and viable course of action that we can take.
SERAP should push on with this lawsuit. Only this January, I have recharged 2,000 naira worth of token thrice. It keeps finishing as if someone is drinking off it. These people are milking us dry and should not be allowed to continue. That's Otis. Now, Kola, obviously, SERAP is not doing this because, because maybe at your office in Lagos or Abuja, your power bills is mounting and you're wondering what the heck is going on. I mean, SERAP is doing this in the interest of all Nigerians. So let's talk about the Nigerians or the average Nigerian who more or less is, willing and has shown over the years, has a track record of receiving hook, line, sinker, whatever is dished out by government. At the start of this conversation, you referenced the situation with fuel, petrol specifically. In Lagos, well, it's a good thing, and I remember when we talked earlier today, when I called you for this show, we talked about fuel in Lagos going for 200 and something naira. Am I right? Over 200 naira?
Yes.
Yes. I said, you guys are having a good time in Lagos. In Port Harcourt here, you get fuel for about 400 naira on the average, and in the black market, 700-800 naira in the black market. So, but what the point I'm making is, in Lagos, obviously over 200 naira is significantly higher than the official pump price. Nigerians are paying for it. Here in Port Harcourt, where it goes for about 400 naira or more, at some point it even hit 500 naira in some filling stations. Nigerians are paying for it. I mean, I don't want it to. If it goes to 600 naira tomorrow, Nigerians will still pay for it. So, I mean, is it a worthwhile venture then? This effort that SERAP has embarked on, because whatever happens, Nigerians, yes, will complain, will murmur, and will send in comments like this, to radio stations or other media outlets where conversations of this nature are going on. And while they're laying their complaints and expressing their frustrations, you won't be surprised that while the person is talking on the phone, the person is paying right there and then, paying these excessive charges or excessive fees to access these services or products. So, is it a worthwhile venture then?
It is. And I've referenced one of the issues we need to do as Nigerians earlier. Politics is the most important. Politicking is going on presently. We call it electioneering. It's another way of looking at it. And while we appear to be sucked in by the various promises that have been made earlier, by the way, in 2015, 2019, and even way before then, we appear to focus less on issues of governance, which is at the heart of the conversation we're having now. It's about good governance, transparency, and accountability. We have this very important opportunity now to make use of this electioneering, this period, to focus on issues of governance. This is not the time to talk about tribe, religion, or this is about governance. What will he or she do about these issues if he or she gets there? And it's not enough to just give vague promises and fancy speeches to rented crowds. It is for people to be able to interrogate these issues and to be able to hold the leaders to account. And Dayo, I understand and we'll discuss the frustrations this brings to the Nigerians who appear to have a tough hide to handle all these issues, but we cannot afford to give up. This think of skeptical will not help anyone. It has never helped any democracy. We need to be consistent in advocacy, but it's the advocacy that is based on understanding, based on knowledge, not along the rather pedestrian sentiments of tribal religion and politics. It must be driven by the desire for good governance. So we understand what good governance is, and then we continue to make those demands. You can't afford to give up. Nigerians need to be encouraged. Really, you call us.
I know right now, but some grouping of so it's liaising with such groups or associations of electricity or power consumers, with a view to possibly strengthening or deepening this advocacy.
Yes, we're working with some of them, but it's within the context of public interest litigation. But if you have groups who want to take part in other freedom of expression advocacies, like demonstrations, we will support them to ensure that they're able to express themselves fully. It's for a worthy cause, it's for a good cause. But we're working with some groups it's strictly towards public interest litigation to generate enough interest or proof, as it were, that our lawyers can use in court to push this through. And really, we encourage Nigerians, as part of the fundamental right, to express themselves freely on air, on radio, TV, by demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations, to ensure that we enforce our rights. It's very important that we continue to do that.
You talked about governance. You talked about electioneering. Basically the responsibility of government to the people. That social contract, as it were. Do you, in your experience, Kola, not just with this matter, but all the other issues SERAP has been handling over the years, do you think the average Nigerian understands the role, the responsibility that government has towards them? Do you think the average Nigerian understands this social contract? Do you think the average Nigerian gets it?
It would depend on what you mean by understanding, one, and then by what they are, the class of average Nigerian. I would say a lot of Nigerians understand what the social contract is, at least within the context of how it works out that it favors them. I think what happens most times is we subject that reasoning most times to more parochial interests. So we think in terms of tribe, religion, politics, and which part of the country your she is from. And that, in essence, mortgages our the common sense, the adherence to principles that should help us as a nation. So a lot of advocacy are done by a lot of groups, including SERAP, a lot more people. So I would not say Nigerians don't know their rights, as it were. They do not understand the concept of government duties and obligations of public officers and institutions. I think we know that, whether we're educated formally or not. I think most Nigerians know that. What happens is we subject those things to other rather pedestrian reasonings that do not favor us. For instance, we're talking of electioneering presently. You will see a lot of engagement on social media, on TV and radio, and even on the pages of newspaper, the print media. And you will see people who have understanding, who are learned, and even Nigerians who appear to subject the rule of law and basic principles of democracy to other interests. And I don't think it's born out of ignorance, really. I think it's just a deliberate lending of those interests to a narrow interest. And unfortunately, it hasn't helped us. It will not help us. So the idea is not to educate Nigerians, as it were. We should educate Nigerians, but to also make Nigerians unlearn those rather pedestrian sentiments, so that the real learning of the rule of law can take its roots. So while we are doing advocacy like this to educate Nigerians about their rights, the social contract, and the rules of government, we need also to focus importantly on learning those other pedestrian reasonings that it doesn't help governance, it doesn't help us in any way. I think that is where we need to focus on, making Nigerians unlearn those other things that is not helping that which we've learned and we've known about democracy and governance.
Good evening, Dyer and Mr. Oluwadare. in River State, we are divided into tariff bands based on the minimum number of hours of electricity they are supplied daily. My area is Band C, 12 hours daily. We don't have 12 hours of light daily. So are they right to even charge me the old charge? Not to talk of this new tariff increase in an illegal tariff band. New tariff for not PHED should even ensure they meet up their electricity supply or place us in the tariff bands we are being supplied. That's some text. We have to wrap up the conversation now. Many thanks for joining in, especially my guest, Kolawole Oluwadare, is SERAP's Deputy Director, who's joined the conversation via phone from Lagos. Kola, many thanks for your time. Wishing your team the very best.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Got a commercial break coming up, top of the hour at, got a commercial break coming up right now. Top of the hour, the major news is up at 6 p.m. After that, a review of all the matters discussed on the show today during the open season segment, including my side comments, today's rant, and the other discussions as well. All of that after the 6 p.m. news till about 7 o'clock when the show comes to an end today. Still Hard Facts, originally live from your number one talk station, 92.3 Nigeria Info, Harry and Port Harcourt. Today, please stay with us.